Hello everyone and welcome to Casa Nightmare. Today we present to you the Creepy Chronicles. In this episode, we take a look at the Axeman of New Orleans, an unidentified American serial killer who was active in New Orleans, Louisiana in the early 20th century. So without further ado, let's get into it. The Axeman's reign of terror began in May 1918 when he claimed his first known victims. The attacks continued sporadically until October 1919, during which time the city of New Orleans was gripped by fear. The brutal nature of the killings and the seemingly random selection of victims added to the panic that permeated the community. On the night of May 23, 1918, Joseph Maggio, an Italian grocery store owner, and his wife Catherine were viciously attacked while they were asleep in their residence at the intersection of Upper Line and Magnolia Streets. The assailant forcibly entered their home and proceeded to attack both victims with a straight-edge razor. The wound inflicted on Catherine was so severe that it nearly decapitated her. Following this gruesome act, the perpetrator used an axe to strike both individuals, potentially to mask the true cause of their deaths. Although Joseph initially survived the assault, he tragically succumbed to his injuries shortly after being discovered by his siblings Jake and Andrew. Before fleeing the scene, the killer left a chilling message inscribed on the nearby pavement which read, quote, "Mrs. Maggio will sit up tonight just like Mrs. Tony," believed to be a cryptic allusion to Anthony and Joanna Sciambra, fellow Italian grocers who had been targeted in a similar violent incident in 1911. When the police investigated, they discovered the bloody clothes of the murderer in the apartment. A blood-stained razor was later found on the lawn of a neighboring property. The police ruled out robbery as a motivation for the attacks since money and valuables that were left in plain sight were not taken by the intruder. Further investigation revealed that the razor belonged to Joseph's brother Andrew, who operated a barbershop on Camp Street. Andrew's employee, Esteban Torres, informed the authorities that Andrew had taken the razor from the shop 2 days before the murder to have a nick honed from its blade. Andrew, who resided in an adjoining apartment, reported hearing groaning noises through the wall on the night of the murders. However, he attributed his failure to hear any noise related to the attack itself to being intoxicated at that time. Andrew became the prime suspect, but was released. In the early hours of June 27, 1918, Louis Bessemer and his mistress Harriet Lowe were assaulted in the private quarters at the rear of Bessemer's grocery store. Bessemer sustained a blow from a hatchet above his right temple. Lowe was attacked on the left side of her head, resulting in permanent paralysis on one side of her face. The following morning, bakery wagon driver John Zanka discovered the couple alive but severely wounded during a routine delivery to the grocery store. The axe used in the assault, belonging to Bessemer himself, was found in a nearby bathroom. Bessemer claimed that he was asleep during the hatchet attack. Lowe's description of her assailant as a quote mulatto man was disregarded by the police due to her disoriented state. The attacks were believed to be motivated by robbery, but no money or valuables were taken from the scene. Lowe's involvement in the media frenzy escalated as she persistently made scandalous and frequently inaccurate statements regarding both the attacks and Bessemer's character. When Bessemer came under suspicion of espionage due to the discovery of letters written in a foreign language in his possession, Lowe informed the authorities that she believed he was a German spy, leading to his immediate arrest. However, he was released just 2 days later. In August 1918, Bessemer was once again apprehended after Lowe, who was gravely ill following unsuccessful surgery, accused him of being her attacker. Subsequently, Bessemer was charged with murder and spent 9 months behind bars but was acquitted on May 1, 1919, following a brief 10-minute jury deliberation. In the early morning of August 5, 1918, Anna Schneider, a 28-year-old woman who was 8 months pregnant, woke up to a horrifying sight: a dark figure standing over her. Like the others, she was brutally attacked with repeated blows to her face. Anna's husband Ed discovered her after returning home late from work past midnight. Despite the severity of the assault, Anna miraculously gave birth to a healthy baby girl just 2 days later. Ed reported to the authorities that only a small sum of money from his wallet, around $6 or $7, was missing from their home. The investigation revealed no signs of forced entry through the windows or doors of their apartment. James Gleason, an ex-convict, was taken into custody shortly after Anna was discovered. However, he was subsequently released due to insufficient evidence linking him to the crime. The lead investigators involved in the case began to publicly speculate that the assault on Anna might be connected to previous incidents involving Bessemer and Maggio. On the morning of August 10, 1918, Pauline and Mary Bruno were awakened by a disturbance coming from the room adjacent to where their elderly uncle, Joseph Romano, lived. Upon entering the room, the two sisters found Romano with severe head injuries, including 2 open cuts. The perpetrator was seen fleeing the scene as they arrived, described by the girls as a dark-skinned, heavy-set man wearing a dark suit and slouched hat. Despite being able to walk to the ambulance upon its arrival, Romano succumbed to his injuries 2 days later due to the severe head trauma he suffered. Although Romano's residence had been ransacked, no items were reported missing. Once again, authorities discovered a bloody axe in the backyard and noted a panel on the back door had been chiseled away. Then, on the night of March 10, 1919, in Gretna, Italian immigrants Charles and Rosie Cordemelia and their infant daughter Mary were brutally attacked in their residence located on the corner of Jefferson Avenue and 2nd Street. The attacker used an axe to inflict severe injuries on Charles and Rosie, both of whom sustained skull fractures. Tragically, Mary succumbed to her injuries. No valuables were taken during the attack, but once again a panel on the back door had been chiseled away. Orlando Giordano, a local grocer, was alerted by screams coming from the Cordemelia residence and rushed over to investigate. Upon arrival, he discovered the gruesome scene of the family's assault. The Axeman had left no apparent motive for the attack and took nothing from the house. Charles Cordemelia was hospitalized for 2 days following the attack, while his wife remained under medical care. Upon her recovery, Rosie accused Giordano and his 18-year-old son Frank of being behind the attacks. Despite her husband Charles vehemently denying his wife's allegations, the police arrested the Giordanos and charged them with murder. Eventually, both men were convicted. Frank received a death sentence by hanging, while his father was sentenced to life imprisonment. Charles ended up divorcing Rosie after the trial, and nearly a year later, Rosie confessed that she had falsely accused the Giordanos due to jealousy and spite, leading to their release. In New Orleans, the heinous murders committed by the Axeman plunged the city into a state of extreme fear and paranoia among its residents. The mere thought of a potential Axeman attack kept people on edge, with many living in constant dread. Reports flooded the police department, detailing multiple sightings of a mysterious figure believed to be the killer lurking about town. Then, a newspaper in New Orleans received a menacing letter from the Axeman himself. It began, "Hell, March 13th, 1919. Esteemed mortal, they have never caught me, and they never will. They have never seen me, for I am invisible, even as the ether that surrounds your earth. I am not a human being, but a spirit and a fell demon from hottest hell. I am what you Orleanians and your foolish police call the Axeman. When I see fit, I shall come again and claim other victims. I alone know whom they shall be. I shall leave no clue except my bloody axe, besmeared with the blood and the brains of he whom I have sent below to keep me company. If you wish, you may tell the police to be careful not to rile me. Of course, I am a reasonable spirit. I take no offense at the way in which they have conducted their investigations in the past. In fact, they have been so utterly stupid so as to amuse not only me, but His Satanic Majesty. But tell them to beware. Let them not try to discover what I am, for it were better that they were never born than for them to incur the wrath of the Axeman. I don't think there's any need of such a warning, for I feel sure that your police will always dodge me as they have in the past. They are wise and know how to keep away from all harm. Undoubtedly, you Orleanians think of me as a most horrible murderer, which I am, but I could be much worse if I wanted to. If I wished, I could pay a visit to your city every night. At will, I could slay thousands of your best citizens, for I am in close relationship with the Angel of Death. Now, to be exact, at 12:15 o'clock earthly time on next Tuesday night, I am going to pass over New Orleans. In my infinite mercy, I'm going to make a little proposition to the people, and here it is. I'm very fond of jazz music, and I swear by all the devils in the nether regions that every person shall be spared in whose house a jazz band is in full swing at the time I have just mentioned. If everyone has a jazz band going, well then, so much the better for the people. One thing is certain, and that is some of those persons who do not jazz it on Tuesday night, if there be any, will get the axe. Well, as I am cold and crave the warmth of my native Tartarus, and as it is about that time that I have left your homely earth, I will cease my discourse, hoping that thou wilt publish this, that it may go well with thee. I have been, am, and will be the worst spirit that ever existed, either in fact or the realm of fancy. Sure enough, that Tuesday night, jazz clubs in New Orleans were alive and bustling, and the Axeman seemingly made good on his promise. There were no attacks in the city that night. Then, on August 10th, 1919, Steve Boca was sleeping when he was suddenly awakened by a dark figure standing over his bed. The intruder struck Boca on the head with an axe, causing severe injuries that left the man unconscious. Upon regaining consciousness, Boca managed to make his way to the street and ran to the home of his neighbor, Frank Janusa. There he collapsed and lost consciousness once again. When authorities arrived at the scene, they found that the back door of Boca's home had been forcibly entered, and yet again, a panel had been chiseled away. Boca could not recall any details about the attack or the identity of his assailant. Boca survived the attack, but was left with lasting physical and emotional scars. The Axeman struck again on the evening of September 3rd, 1919, when Sarah Lawman was attacked in her apartment. Concerned neighbors went to check on the young woman, who resided alone, and forcibly entered the residence when Lawman failed to respond. They found the 19-year-old unconscious on her bed with a severe head injury and multiple missing teeth. The intruder had gained access through an open window and used a blunt object to attack Lawman. A bloodied axe was later discovered on the front lawn of the building. Although Lawman eventually recovered from her injuries, she was unable to recall any specifics about the assault. The Axeman's last attack occurred on the night of October 27th. Esther Pepitone was awakened by a noise and rushed to her husband Mike's bedroom door just in time to see a large man wielding an axe fleeing the scene. Mike Pepitone had been struck in the head and was drenched in his own blood. This incident marked the final alleged attack by the Axeman. And now let's look at the suspects. Aside from the previously mentioned suspects who were apprehended and later released, only one name remains. Scholar Richard Warner identified Frank Doc Mumphrey as the primary suspect in the crimes. Mumphrey operated under the alias Leon Joseph Mumphrey. His jazz business in the Garden District, which had previously been struggling, suddenly experienced a significant uptick in business. Esther Pepitone moved to Los Angeles not long after the attacks and married a man named Angelo Albano. On the second anniversary of Mike Pepitone's murder, Albano disappeared. Albano had previous business connections with Joseph Mumphrey. On December 5th, 1921, Mumphrey paid a visit to Esther's residence, demanding $500 and jewelry, threatening that he would end her life in the same way he did her husband's if she didn't comply. Instead, Esther fatally shot Mumphrey. When police arrived, she told the authorities that she shot Mumphrey because she believed he was the Axeman. However, the evidence against Mumphrey was circumstantial, including Mumphrey's role in running a blackmailing gang in New Orleans targeting Italians. In the earlier slayings of the Chiambras, the prime suspect also went by the name Mumphrey. Despite extensive investigations and media coverage, the true identity of the Axeman of New Orleans remains a mystery to this day. So that's going to do it for this episode of the Creepy Chronicles. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.